This is Chris McLean from Stretch Armstrong, and you're listening to The New Scene.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The New Scene. I am your host, Keith, and we're back with a brand new episode. And I've got a great one for you this week. We have Tom Sheehan of Most Precious Blood, Indecision, and of course, Axe to Grind podcast. Strap in for this conversation. It's a good one. We discuss everything. We talk about Indecision. We talk about Most Precious Blood. We talk about how there was two active Most Precious Bloods at the same time and the confusion that caused, which I had no idea about. We talk about the infamous Bible incident at Furnace Fest 2002. We talk about Axe to Grind podcast. We really cover it all. And Tom doesn't hold back. He gives it to you straight. And that's coming up momentarily. So before we get to that, support The New Scene. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at New Scene Pod. We've got shirts over at Death Wish Inc. Search us there. Buy a shirt. It's a great way to support the show. And I've got a new review. For us. I'm going to read it right now. From Sociopath237. My first true podcast experience. 5 stars. It's official. I am a member. The New Scene is the only podcast I will acknowledge, and all other podcasts just don't pique my interest. Oh, I love that. Okay, let's continue. I came for the Tobias Grave interview, but I stayed for the acknowledgement of drug addiction in the scene and the sense of comfort I felt hearing those stories of addiction and that I was not alone. Music has been the only part of my life that has been true to me. I'm from San Antonio, Texas, and it blows my mind how little this place is talked about when it comes to music. Anyways, huge fan, and thank you for helping me acknowledge how important music is to me. Thank you so much for that review. That's excellent. Yeah, I'm glad that I can have those open and honest conversations about addiction and drugs and recovery when they come up. It's not something that's part of every guest's story necessarily, but I do really love those episodes because that's a big part of my life and that's my story. And the Tobias Grave episode has gotten a lot of attention. A lot of people have written me and said how it has helped them, including this individual who has written me, and I love it. I really love it because I was always searching for a connection in regards to that because I felt so alone. So if I'm able to provide that to anybody through this show, that's the best thing in the world. So thank you, Sociopath, so much for that review. That was fantastic. And in addition to supporting The New Scene, be sure to support Iodine Recordings. They've got Light Tower cassettes out now. Pick one of those up. The Light Tower EP is excellent. Excellent music. I love it. Think Failure, think Hum, think Good, post-hardcore alternative type stuff. It features Chris Enriquez, who's been in a million bands, Spotlights, On the Mind of Princes. He's done it all. He was on our podcast on episode 131. Pick up the Light Tower cassette. Listen to Chris's episode. It's great stuff. The Fest 2022. There are 9 Iodine bands playing. 9. So if you're going to the Fest, make sure you check one of them out. And Hey Thanks have announced fall tour dates. Go check them out if they're playing near you. You can see the dates on their Instagram page. And make sure you listen to the album Start Living. It's one of my favorite albums of the year. You can get more Iodine updates over at their Instagram, Iodine Recordings, or at their website, iodinerecords.com. Okay, so let's talk some music recommendations. There's a lot going on. Fleshwater have a new single out. Fleshwater is a new alternative, grungy, post-hardcore, emo-tinged band featuring member of Vane. I'm not sure exactly, but look, whatever they're doing, I love it. They had a 3-song EP come out, I think, during the pandemic. That was fantastic. They've got their debut LP coming out November 4th, and they've got a new single available now for your listening pleasure. It's called Kiss the Ladder. It's great. It's great, and I can't wait to hear the record. I'm highly anticipating that. Anxious have a new single out, Sunshine. Anxious Can Do No Wrong. They're one of my favorite new bands. And Blink 182, the original lineup with Mark, Tom, and Travis, is back. They will be on tour, and they have none other than Turnstile opening up for them. That is a massive tour. I would like to go to that. I don't know if I will because I get so anxious doing anything these days, but listen, that's a great tour. And Blink have said that they have a new album coming and they've called it the best of their career, and I hope they're right. You know, I've been like reading more about Blink 182 recently and just listening to the records I didn't listen to, and the prospect of a new album with this classic lineup is very exciting. I hope the album is awesome, and I can't wait to hear more. Also, shout out to Hopes Fall. Hopes Fall are celebrating 20 years of the Satellite Years. October 15th marks 20 years. It's a defining record for the band, and it's awesome. So I always give that a spin again around this time of year. If you're interested in hearing more Hopes Fall, I've had Josh on the show like 5 or 6 times. Adam has been on the show. Ryan has been on the show. You know what else came out 20 years ago on October 15th, 2002? Jets to Brazil, Perfecting Loneliness. I think that might be my current favorite of theirs. It's the one I go back to the most, and it's a classic, an absolute classic, so give it a listen if you have not heard it. All right, so check back in with me in segment 3. We'll check in with each other. I'll talk about how I'm doing. But right now, we are going to speak to Tom Sheehan. Enjoy. All right, we are here now with Tom Sheehan. Tom, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's wonderful to have you here, Tom. You know, I've been anticipating this conversation. We've got a big Most Precious Blood gig coming up at Furnace Fest, and you are a fellow big-time podcaster, so I'm very interested in talking to you about that. But first, Tom, let me ask you, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, but we need to go back because MPB is not playing Furnace Fest.
Why?
We canceled.
What?
Yes.
What?
Yes.
We have breaking news, folks. We have breaking news. Tom, lay it on us. What happened?
We canceled like 2 weeks ago. We were overjoyed to be able to play, and then once like it got to like August, and we're like, oh, we haven't practiced yet. Oh, this person lives in California. This person lives in Atlanta. This person lives here. It was like, I don't think we're going to be able to get it together, and I don't want to like kind of half-ass it.
Yeah.
So like, I think it's, so we canceled like maybe 2 weeks ago, and they did like that. They did the kind of like a battle of the bands type thing to take our spot.
That's what that was about.
That's why. Yeah. It was our fault. But it worked out. But yeah, so hopefully we'll play next year. But like it just kind of wrangling 5 adults into a room that don't do it very often. It's pretty tough. And just the geographic stuff, it was just like, oh man, I don't know if we're going to be able to do this and do it right.
Yeah. It's so hard to make plans as an adult. Like my band is talking about hanging out together because we never hang out. We just practice and that's it. And we can't do it. We can't even just plan one night to hang out. It hasn't happened yet.
It's incredible as you get older, how much more difficult it is to just kind of like get to you can't find 2 hours on a Saturday to get together and play songs that you've played for 20 years, But yeah, so yeah, we're not playing. So I was like, I hope this doesn't totally screw up Keith's scheduling. And
Most Precious Blood, I'm guessing Furnace Fest reached out and said, hey, play the show. And then we wanted to play it. Yes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it was like, we had a bit of an incident the last time we played there. So when last year's came up and then this year's, people were like, you guys should play. And I was like, there's not a shot that they'll ever ask us back there.
So they did ask you to play.
They did. And, Ryan and both Ryan and Chad reached out to us.
Now, the incident you're referring to is the infamous 2003 Most Precious Blood set at Furnace Fest, where Bibles were ripped up by people in the crowd and thrown all over the place, and other people got upset, and this was pinned on Most Precious Blood, right? But let's set the record straight, Tom. Tell the people what actually happened.
So it was 2002. I mean, I think we didn't supply we supplied the soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't necessarily supply the Bibles at the time. I always talk about folks with this, and it's different for being like a New Yorker and like a Northeasterner. Like religion isn't as pressing a thing as it is like down south. So like for folks down there, it's actually like a daily thing that they could be fighting against. So it's like, it's hard for me to be like, how dare you take this stand? But I think, at the time we were like, wow, this is I cannot, imagine this is happening. Thinking about like all like my Irish Catholic family being like, I can't believe this is what you do on the weekends. But yeah, I mean, I think it was, I would be hypocritical to be like, it wasn't us, it was all them. And we were just there to rock, like some other bands have done that. And I think that's corny. It's like,
yeah,
I mean, there's a reason why they chose our band to do that during.
I see.
You know what I mean? Like we definitely provided some of the music that made people feel that way. They didn't do it during other bands. They just did it during us. So like,
so you weren't backstage handing out Bibles before the set, but you weren't exactly like discouraging such actions either.
Well, I mean, in the middle of everything, it's hard to like calm people down.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think, in retrospect, I mean, especially in the culture we live in now, I just want people to respect, someone else, if that's their beliefs, that's their belief. I mean, it's not for me, but I think, if someone took like the Minor Threat discography and started burning it, I'd probably be pissed too, or whatever. You know what I mean? It was a tough situation, but like they were super cool about it, and like we're like, we'd be thrilled to have you back. And I guess they had asked a member, and so MPB's got a very convoluted history. So I think when they asked Rachel, and Rachel's like, "Oh, our drummer lives in Indonesia," which is true, and so then I keep getting messages like, why do you keep turning down Furnace Fest? And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And it ended up being, they were asking for like the original version of MPB, which was me, which was involved in that thing. And not like, there's a version of Most Precious Blood that lasted a lot longer than my version. So like, I think she assumed they were asking for that version, but they were actually asking for the older version who was involved in the fracas in 2002. So they finally got, the word got to me and to Matt Miller about, asking us to play. And we're like, that would be cool. Let's look at the dates. And we just asked if we could play like a Saturday, just knowing like everyone's like life and work schedules and stuff. And then it ended up being like the lineup came out and I was like, it was like I'm so bummed that we're not playing, because it was a complete like bucket list lineup, the whole weekend, but especially Saturday, like to be able to play with like Sunny Day Real Estate and Pedro the Lion and Cursive. It's like, when is that ever going to happen for any of my bands again? You know what I mean? Like we could play with Earth Crisis tomorrow, but I can't play with, Pedro the Lion, like one of my favorite musicians. Like Vazan is incredible. Like I wouldn't be able to, when am I ever going to get, my hardcore band's never going to open for him.
If you can't make it happen, you can't make it happen. You don't want to half-ass it, and you don't want to be bad, right?
Yeah. And I don't want to, like, especially as you get older, like you have to be that much like better, I think.
Yeah.
Because I feel like people assume that you're going to be whack, because you're like, of course you're going to be terrible. You're mid-40s and you're playing hardcore. So like you have to be like, all right, well now we're going to be awesome. But like if we weren't going to be awesome, I that's a big room. That's not like us playing like a DIY spot in front of 200 kids that if we're like a little sloppy, it's still fun.
It's a big crowd no matter what stage you're on.
Exactly. Right. So it's like, oh, this could go sideways. Somebody forgets a part, and then we're standing there twiddling our thumbs in front of, I don't know, 1,000 people, 10,000 people, whatever it might be, how many people come to these things,
I haven't played a live gig since 2016, and I still have that nightmare weekly.
Oh, it's the worst nightmare, and I've lived it. And it's like drummers just stop playing in the middle of a song, and like we all just stop and look at him. It's like, we've played this song probably 1,000 times.
So that's actually happened to you.
That's happened to me. Yeah. It was either, it might have been in Philly. It was either in Philly or in Worcester. It was either at the Trocadero or at the Palladium. Like our drummer just like literally just stopped playing. And it was like very overt that he was like, I don't know where this goes anymore.
Wow.
And like, yeah, like, I mean, we were, it was a big show. It was like, those rooms were pretty big. And he just like, riff kept going. Drums just like, we just kind of dropped. We're like, and I just looked at it and I was like, yo, what the, and he was just like, yeah, just totally, I couldn't remember it. And I was like, okay.
You just move on to another song or what?
We we kind of tried to make it as noisy and weird. Like we went into our Sonic Youth bag to make it sound like it made sense. And then we stopped and went into another song. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It was rough. It was rough. So it happens. I mean, people get brain cramps and it just happens, but
it does happen. It does happen.
No one understands what I'm saying anyway. So I can yell. And if I forget every last word, no one's going to remember. As long as I say it close to the cadence I did on the record, no one's going to tell the difference.
That's the great thing about being a hardcore vocalist. You just need to know the syllables.
That's really it. I mean, if Negative Approach, John Brannon doesn't say a word, but it's still the coolest thing going. It doesn't say a goddamn word, but it's still that one.
So when this incident happens back in 2002,
Sure.
Talk about after the set. Do you get pulled aside? Is there intense conversations? What happens?
Some band dudes. I don't know if we were really approached by any of the Christian bands, like, or any of, like, even I don't know. I don't remember ever being approached by anybody from the fest either. I mean, I think on stage, if I remember correctly, we did our best to sort of like. I mean, I wasn't like, yeah, rip them up. Like, I wasn't like getting anyone like all psyched up to do it.
Yeah.
I feel like we kind of ignored it, but I was like, this is not going to go well. You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like this is going to amplify. A band that we toured with came up to us and was like very disappointed in us. Came up to Matt Miller, like our bass player, who's like the nicest human being in the world, and was like, you know, before this tour, thumbs up. After this tour, thumbs down. We're like, wow.
Like, who was the band?
Throwdown.
Oh,
yeah. I really like those dudes too. So it's, you know, like and it was all. I'm like, we were out for 25 days together, and it was awesome. And then because of this thing, they're like, you guys are terrible. I'm like, what the fuck? We had nothing, like, especially Matt Miller had nothing to do with it. It wasn't like we were like every hotel we stayed at, we like took the King James. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just was like something that happened. Like, we were, MPB and Indecision were very like big in the atheist scenes down there. And like, yeah, the people that came to see us were trying to start something,
Yeah.
You can't start a revolution. Like, not, you have to do some not so great stuff to make stuff really happen. So.
Right. I remember I was right up front during that thing, and I remember people ripping up the pages, and then the religious kids were like picking them up, and I didn't like it just because I'm not religious or anything, but those kids just seemed so genuinely upset, and I always root for the underdog, and seeing everybody like ripping up the Bibles and seeing those kids so upset, I was just like, oh man, that's not good.
Yeah, but I mean, in the grand scheme of things, where we were the fucking underdog.
Oh, you know what? That's a good point.
You know what I mean? That's primarily a religious festival that has some secular bands. And in Birmingham, Alabama, if I went out into the street and was like, how many people identify themselves as an atheist? I'd probably last about 5 minutes before I got beaten.
That's a good point.
So, I mean, I totally get it. And if, I think it's hard to say because I can see both sides of it and see like, it's being like, being indoctrinated into that and like being really heartbroken over it. And I could see someone being like, I can't come out as gay because of this religion, or I can't do this, I can't do that because of this, especially in the South. So it's like, it was a fucking war. It was not, it was wild to see,
It was. I still remember that. Yeah.
And like, it was just kind of something that we never expected, like a show or two, someone would like throw out a Bible from the stage, like not us, like someone would get up, like whatever, but like, this was just kind of like, yeah, like people moshing with Bibles, picking up Bibles, who's burning things. I was like, did not expect this to happen.
So is there a formal banning from the fest? Do you get an email that says Most Precious Blood is no longer welcome at Furnace Fest or anything like that? Or is it just you're not invited back?
No, I just think we were never invited back. And I honestly, I don't know. Did it go on after that?
There was one more year, 2003.
There was 2003. Okay.
And then I think that was it. I
wasn't even in the band in 2003. So I don't know if we got anything in writing.
Yeah.
I just think it was kind of like, yeah, we're probably not going to get, let's not plan our tour to go south at that point because probably not going to get that invite.
Well, it's good that you're invited back and that you can play again, right? Because listen, we're young. When I was young, I was idealistic about certain things. And I still am. I'm not going to rip up a Bible. And I kind of make it my mission statement now to not be at war with people because I think that's what the powers that be want, to have us all fighting against each other to distract us from the bigger problems that we should be addressing. So as long as somebody is not a racist or, like something terrible like that, I'm willing to just try to get along with everybody. So we're older, we're trying to get along. We can just play the gig and get along, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we played with a bunch of Christian. I mean, like,
yeah.
I was excited to play with Pedro the Lion. I mean, he's not religious anymore, but like, yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things like at the time, like it's the biggest thing in your life. And now it's not, but it's still, yeah, I mean, believe me, as many times as for every Bible ripping mosh thing, we've had, 10 run-ins with, like racists or Nazis or whatever that, was handled the same way. So it's like, it's that just happened to be the one at a big festival that had a DVD.
I'm curious about Most Precious Blood and its origins. Why did you decide on a new band and not to just continue Indecision? Why the new band? Why the new name?
Well, Indecision had broken up at the end of, I think it was 2000 or no,
Yes,
something thereabout. And like a month later, Justin was like, "Hey, do you want to do something?" And I was like, "Oh, okay." I just got kicked out of the band like a year and a half ago. And he was like, "Let's do something different. Like, no pressure. We won't, we'll play when we want to play. We'll just record something, like no touring, no anything." And I was like, yeah, I was like, we should probably have a chat before we do any of this. But yeah, so we kind of had a clear in the air kind of conversation. And then we were like, all right, so we can't be Indecision, but we wanted to have something that tied the bands together. Because at the time of the recording of the record, and probably for maybe 6 months before that, it was actually Indecision. It was the full band. So we were kind of going through. We used to, and also to go back, we used to rip off Man is the Bastard, and we would do shirts that said Indecision, aka Most Precious Blood. So like they'd have Man is the Bastard, aka Charred Remains. Like, so we ripped that thing off. So we would have shirts that would say Indecision, aka Most Precious Blood. And I think that was kind of like, well, we're going to have another band. And then we used to make shirts that said Most Precious Blood, aka Indecision.
so it was like a continuation. It was the lore was already tied in.
Yeah, and like I feel like it was like we had put a lot of work into the band, and it was really no different. But we didn't want to kind of just rest on our laurels, and we were trying to do something a little different. So yeah, we figured we'd use a title of one of the records as the band name, and then then we just started like messing around, writing and stuff, and then recorded a demo, and then all of a sudden I was on tour. I don't know what happened.
Well, did you say you got kicked out of Indecision?
I get kicked out of both bands, actually. Yeah.
Wow. So let's start with Indecision. Why did you get kicked out?
I mean, apparently I'm a jerk. I don't know. No, you know what? I think Indecision was not going very well. Like we toured a lot to very little return, because like the labels we were on and stuff didn't really, like you'd go to like the hardcore record store in your town, and you like we'd go in and be like, let's go to the Eyes, and be like, oh cool, they don't have our record here. So it's like, how's anyone going to know us? It's like almost pre-internet. You know what I mean? It's like, so yeah. So tours were going pretty badly. We had like we got robbed in Vancouver, and like got a bunch of our stuff stolen, got like guns pulled on us. So that was not great. I had got into grad school, and I was like, all right, this sounds pretty cool. I might go to grad school instead, and maybe continue to do the band, but not full time. And they're like, oh no, we're going to do this full time. And then it was just kind of like, it was one of those things. It was like a relationship. It's like, we probably should have broken up already, but no one wanted to be the one that broke up with the other person.
Yeah.
It was one of those things. And then they finally pulled the trigger, and it worked out. I got to go to school. They toured, whatever,
You said you got robbed at gunpoint in Vancouver, and they stole a bunch. Now, this I've read about this Indecision Curse. Is that true, or is that just...
We were cursed. No, we were absolutely cursed.
Give us some examples.
One of our first tours, we got right outside the Holland Tunnel, and we realized that our tires being held on by one lug nut.
I've heard of this happening before.
Yeah, I mean, like if you could break down, like you could be like, if you're driving somewhere, you're like, man, this would suck to break down in. Guaranteed, we've broken down there. Like it's just like we've had van problems, show problems. But yeah, like in Vancouver, we were given the venue had changed, but our booking person never told us. So we were in this part of Vancouver, and we're like, we're like, we're fine. So like we leave some stuff. We just like go to the store. And we're like sitting in a park, and somebody from Silent Majority is like, that's someone coming out of your van? We're like, what? So we go running, and our van is like cleared out. Broken window. I always joke like they stole like my Fiona Apple tape and my straight edge shirt. What are you gonna do with that? Yeah. So then we're on we were on like a vigilante mission going around Vancouver trying to find it. Like we'd like, be walking down the street and see somebody like with our drummer's hat, or like that's our bass player's book bag, whatever. So we started getting stuff back. It was like a video game. We were like getting our stuff back as we went along.
Wow.
And we found this one dude and we chased him into like a deli or something. These two dudes stood in front of the door and like pulled guns on us, and we're like, okay, and like we're like, all right, so I guess we're not getting everything back. And then the cops like approached us or something. They're like, you guys that got your van broken into. We're like, yeah. They're like, you might want to get out of here. And we're like, what? They're like, yeah, you might want to get out of here before it like gets to nighttime because now there are people looking for you.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, oh, okay. Because I mean, like, they were like, but we didn't realize that like at the time it was like this part of Vancouver was like the most prominent like area of like heroin use in North America.
Yeah, it's still Vancouver is really rough. I watch documentaries and stuff about it. It's wild up there.
Yeah. So and this is like way back when, because I have friends up there now. They're like, oh, that place is beautiful. I'm like, well, it wasn't when I got a gun pulled on me. So then they're like, you might want to get out of here by like, it was almost like the sheriff telling you to get out of here by like sundown.
Yeah.
We're like, all right, no problem. And then like we drove down south and like we drove down the coast. And we ended up somehow at Revelation, and they were like, "Oh, you guys got robbed." Like, yeah, and they're like, "Go into the warehouse, take whatever like clothes you need." So I had like a Revelation wardrobe for the rest of the summer. It was pretty great. I always thought that was the coolest thing.
That's wild. So the Indecision Curse is real. Did it carry over to Most Precious Blood, or were you good?
No, I think it carried over. For the beginning of MPB, we were pretty lucky. I mean, they've gone through like it's like Spinal Tap level of drummers.
I think 13 or something like that.
I think it's 13. I was going to say there were only three when I was in the band from the end of 2000 to the beginning of 2000, 2 years, or like a little bit over 2 years, almost 3. And we had 3 drummers. I mean, it's a lot. And like one drummer was the majority of it. Like, so it's like and like the drummer that ended up playing with me in MPB for the longest period of time, like speaking of curses, like they were doing like a fly out to like Phoenix to play a one-off in Arizona. And, they're all like, all right, we're all going to stay at Justin's house the night before. So we can all get up in the morning, get on the flight, fly out to Phoenix, play the show. And like everyone's there, everything's great. They wake up in the morning and he's gone. And he left like a Dear John letter on the windshield of the van.
Oh, wow. What happened? Did you ever find out what happened?
He's just like, I can't do it. I just can't do it. And like they hadn't seen him in like years. I ran into him after the fact. Like years after. But yeah, he was either afraid to fly or just didn't want to be bothered anymore. But like he waited till the morning of the show to tell them that he didn't want to do it anymore.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, and like Indecision got pulled over like in Europe and like strip searched and went through all our stuff, like read, be like, did you guys play in Austria last night? We're like, no. And then they're like, they pick up like my notebook and be like, played in Austria last night. I'm like, God damn it. Like,
oh man.
So it's like we've run into problems over the years.
When you're strip searched, like in my mind, I don't know why, but I'm imagining like everyone's standing in a line and they have to take off all their clothes, or do they do it one by one in some investigation room?
They do it one by one, thankfully.
Yeah.
I mean, we also had Rachel, a woman in the band. So she got a woman cop. This is like on the border of Austria.
Yeah.
And then they like went through all our bags. I had like some kind of like throat coat, like tea.
Yeah.
Because it was like, this is when like we'd go on tour for 2 months at a time. And they thought that was drugs. Then I had Tic Tacs, and they were literally putting the Tic Tacs against this poster that had all different kinds of pills on them, trying to like identify them. And then we got stopped because two of the guys from Indecision smoked weed, and like when we were in Amsterdam, they smoked, and I guess they had some on them, or whatever. So they pulled us over. They were like, what are you doing? We're like, we're a band from New York. They're like, pull into this garage. We're like, here we go. Like, we knew it was happening, and they ripped apart our van, like went through every bit of our equipment and merch, and like, so they like line us up, and they're like, all right, you come in. So like, I was the last person, so I'm like getting pulled into the investigation room, and they're like, do you have a wallet? I go, yeah. They're like, can we see it? They're like, you don't do drugs? I go, no, I'm straight edge. And like, no drugs at all. I go, no drinking, nothing. And so I give them my wallet. They look through it. I had like a picture of my niece in it. She's like, very cute. I go, thanks. They're like, okay. And I'm like, what? They're like, yeah, you're good to go. They made everyone. One of the dudes was like so scuzzy. I think they were like freaked out by the smell. That they were like, yeah, you're a man of large account. We're not going to. But I was just like, oh no. Like, this is going to be brutal. And like I think as it went on, it got less and less intrusive because they knew they weren't going to really find anything.
They can probably tell like who has drugs or not.
Maybe, yeah. And like if there was some kind of like solvent they could put on your hands to tell if you had like THC on your hands within a certain amount of time, or at least that's what they told us. We're like, oh, cool, I'm going to be locked up abroad, and my family's never going to know what happened to me.
My God.
Yeah, but yeah, so that's a bit of a curse too.
Yeah, sounds like a lot of bad luck.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's because the Bibles. I mean, that's if I had to go back to it.
Yeah, you know what? I get upset about a lot of things in my modern life now that I've cleaned up and I'm doing things, better. And the things I get upset about, I realize it's a lot of shit I did to other people. So I'm like, all right, universe. Okay, I got you.
But I was never like a hardline straight edge dude. So I've been like, oh, you smoked a little weed in Amsterdam? Who doesn't?
Yeah.
But people in Austria, not having it.
So you said you got kicked out of Most Precious Blood too?
Yes.
Why? What happened?
That I'm not as that's like it's like a Seinfeld episode. It's much ado about nothing. I don't really know. Like it was just kind of like, oh, this is going well, and then it was like, all right.
What happens? Do you get a phone call? Like, how do you find out?
Yeah, so I got a phone call from the drummer. So this is how it's gone. Both times, like the people that have been like closest to me in the band have not broken the news to me. They usually get the guy that I'm not that friendly with.
Does that upset you?
Yes.
I would be very upset at that.
Yeah, like it's like you could have had this conversation, be like, hey, we're going to go a different direction, or hey, whatever.
Yeah.
But you get the guy that I don't really like get along with to call me. It's like,
That's a cop out.
Yeah. I always thought it was like a punk thing to do. I was like, that's a wimpy thing to do. You could have at least had the call, especially if you were in agreement, then you should own up and do it. But he didn't.
Yeah.
So you get like a call, and I was like, oh man, like at the time, MPB was like a full-time job for all of us.
Were you like making enough to live? Kind of. It was going good.
Yeah. I mean, it was enough to like have an apartment. Like live between tours. Like it was great.
Wow.
I mean, it wasn't. We're not talking hate breed money, but like we were doing fine.
Yeah.
To live. We all lived in Brooklyn. I had a roommate, but like I still was able to survive pretty easily just off MPB. So it was kind of like, oh shit, might as well get a job.
So what'd you do after that?
I went back to the job. So I went back to a mental health case management job that I left for tour. I went like when I quit that job to like do the music stuff full time, and I was like, hey, you guys still looking to hire anybody? And they're like, sure. And like I was like a known commodity, so they're like, you come right back. I'm like, okay.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I lucked out. So I've literally worked for this agency 3 times. I like work with them now.
I know Most Precious Blood continued on. I think they got Rob Fusco to step in on vocals.
Yeah, which is funny.
Because like,
sorry about that.
It is funny because he got kicked out of One King Down, and then they got another guy for the second album. So it's like this cycle of getting kicked out and stepping in and all this stuff.
It's very true. So the last MPB show I played was in Worcester. I think it was the last Reach the Sky show, actually. It was like Reach the Sky, Terror, MPB, Bane. So it was like this big show. It was like I didn't know it was going to be my last show. So we're outside, and like I was friendly with Rob Fusco. So I'm like, what are you doing music-wise? He's like, nothing. And I was like, you know what? Shai Hulud needs a singer. This is like 2003, so I don't know who would have been the singer. Maybe Geert just left. I don't know. And they were in between singers. So I was like, you should head up Fox, man. That would be like a good match, He's like, yeah, maybe. And then like 4 days later, he was at MPB.
Oh.
I should have went to sing for Shai Hulud. I mean, I probably wouldn't have lasted, but it would have been cool for like 6 months or something. But yeah. So Rob took over. I guess they did like 3 records or something.
Did you ever listen to the band again?
I've seen them a few times. I've listened to the records just because like I'm still friendly with some of those folks. I mean, especially the people from Indecision and Matt. Yeah, I've listened to it.
Do you like it? Do you feel weird about it?
I don't like it, honestly.
Yeah. I ask because I'm very petty. Like, I left my first band and they continued on without me, and I never listened to them or saw them again. I was like, I don't want to know. I don't want to see it. I don't want anything to do with it. But it sounds like you at least listened to Most Precious Blood and saw them with you not in it.
Yeah, I mean, they just happened to play shows that I was at and stuff like that. And then, soon thereafter, like right after I got kicked out, so Justin's dad had died. And like, he was like so supportive of the bands over the years. Like I had known him probably for, at that point, 15 years or something almost. So I went to the wake. So I think that kind of eased some of the weirdness.
Yeah.
Just because I was like, I don't owe it to any of the people in this band, but I owe it to the dad,
Yeah.
So, and to support his mom and all that sort of stuff. So I think that kind of ended some of the weirdness. But like, so I'd see them at shows, and it's like, it wasn't the same band to me. And like, they would give me the CDs and stuff. And like, I honestly, it never really did anything. Like, I always look at like a band, and I don't know if you do the same. Like, for me, how I measure a band is like, man, I wish I wrote that, or man, I wish I was able to sing over something like that.
Yep.
That didn't happen.
Oh.
So there wasn't anything like, oh man,
I got you.
if I could have done that. No, it just never really did much for me.
It sounds like the friendships over the years have transcended any band beefs there may have been. And I'm surprised because I'm just thinking about it in terms of me. I used to really hold a grudge bad. And maybe you did, but this is twice that you're kicked out of the band, twice that you're kicked out by not your best friend in the band. They get somebody else to do it. And the bands continue on and there's some beef, but it sounds like you managed to work through it, which is good.
Yeah, I mean, I think, growing up, like we were a friend group that happened to start a band.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, well, if I don't hang out with these folks, well, then I can't hang out with these 10 other folks because they're also my friends from high school. Like all these people that I grew up with, that was like, well, this is weird. It wasn't just like a band of like people from the scene. It was like, oh, these are people that I like went to high school with. We decided on a lark to start a band, but like we all had the same friend group. So it's like, how many, so it's like, so that was kind of strange. But I think, over the years, it's sort of like I could I definitely hold grudges, and I still hold a grudge. I'd be lying if I said I didn't. But like, I think, it would only hurt me if I held a grudge. It was like, I enjoy playing those songs and people seem to enjoy watching us play those songs. So it's like, who am I really screwing over by being like, fuck those guys? I'm doing myself damage because it's like, I get to do it once a year and I have a blast. So like, I would never, be like, all right, I'm going to take off or quit my job for a month so I can go on tour. Like that's gone. But like to be able to like, get an opportunity like to play something like Furnace Fest or like play, a show or two a year, I'd be foolish to let any grudges like kind of stop me from doing something that I really enjoy.
That's good. That's a mature attitude. Something I myself am trying to develop.
It's tough. It's not easy. I mean, believe me, and it's taken a long time, and and it's still kind of rare. Rears its ugly head every once in a while. I go, man, but ultimately, it's fun. So like, I'd be foolish to not partake in that. And I feel like I didn't get to enjoy most of it. Like Indecision, MPB, like MPB was good. Like we did pretty well throughout the time. Like once the record came out, but like Indecision, no one cared. Nobody cared.
I'm surprised to hear you say that because I saw the name Indecision a lot. I know a lot of people who really love you guys. I mean, why didn't it do so well? What do you mean specifically?
Like, I mean, like we would tour and play like in front of 10 people almost everywhere.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, we toured every summer with Silent Majority. And like both of our bands played in front, like we played in front of each other and maybe another 10 people.
Wow.
It was brutal. I mean, some places were good, but most of the time it was pretty bad, and like, so it's kind of like, over the years, like Indecision does better than MPB now, which is funny. You know what I mean? It's just, MPB was like, when we started, once the Trusco record came out, like we always did pretty well. We got good tours. People seemed to come out and all that sort of stuff. But Indecision was like such a struggle that I never really, they got, on some tours after that, but I felt like I never got to really enjoy the fruits of my labor and get to do like all these, like, get to tour with AFI or all the sort of stuff that they got to do.
That must have been tough.
Yeah. I remember like the first show they played after they kicked me out was with, it was Agnostic Front and Dropkick Murphys in Manhattan. I was like, God damn it. I was like, I would have gone to this if I wasn't playing it, but now I'm not playing it, but I can't go to it.
So you couldn't play and you couldn't go.
Yeah. I felt weird going.
Yeah.
The first time I saw them, and this is always like the funniest story, like there was a festival we were booked to play called Alive and Well Festival in Asbury Park, New Jersey. And big, it was like the Misfits and Sick of It All, Underdog, VOD. It was like a huge fest, the 2-day thing. And I still went, and it was like their first or second show right after I was out of the band. And I show up, and like the dudes from Fury 5 are like, fuck happened? And I'm like, they kicked me out. They're like, do you want us to clear the stage? And I was like, what? And they're like, we'll take them all off the stage if you want. I was like, no, I appreciate it. But nah, I couldn't, I don't know if I could do that. Like, there's a woman up there. I can't do that. And like, so there ended up being an Indecision documentary that you see me and two of the guys from Figure 5 in front of the stage while they're playing. Because like they literally stood with me the entire time and watched them from 5 feet away.
I wouldn't have been able to play. I would have been terrified.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if those dudes, but I just remember being like, this is hilarious. Like, this is amazing that like these dudes would literally just beat up everyone on stage because of them kicking me. And like, you can see us in the bottom half of the bottom left-hand side of the video. And like, and Indecision's like the kind of the voiceovers, like, here's like our first show, big show, we're all shitting our pants. And I was like, meanwhile, there's half a Fury of 5 standing next to me, like 10 feet from you, in your eye, definitely within like your view, you know?
Think about it. Having Fury of 5 at your disposal, that's a literal superpower.
Oh, I mean, I would have been like, him, get that person too. Like, I felt like I was the toughest guy, you know, third toughest guy in the room. But yeah, I mean, they were always nice. You know, we played a ton of stuff with Fury, so they were always fucking cool. I'm glad
That's awesome.
they're all back. Yeah.
When is the last time you played a gig with Most Precious Blood?
The last time we played was 2019.
What show was it?
It was a back to school jam.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was the last back to school jam. It was like Marjorie D and Folly. So yeah, since I've been out, we played 3 times ever. Once was an impromptu show in 2016 in Atlanta. Indecision was flying down to play the last Foundation show, and they were doing like a locals only show the night before, like under all fake names. And the bass player from MPB was going to miss the Indecision show because he had to work a wedding. So he's like, "Do you guys want to play a couple of songs on this set?" I'm like, okay. So we literally like flew down, went across the street to one of the dudes from Foundation's like practice space, played the 5 songs through once, and then ended up playing. And it was like crazy, like nuts. Like everyone, like it was all, I mean, I think it was like a poorly held secret that we were playing. So then it was like, that was fucking cool. And everyone, you know, everyone in New York were like, yeah, what the fuck? Like how does this happen and not happen in New York? And then we're like, well, you know, it's like an anniversary of the record. We could do that. And so we started working on that. And then the other MPB, same MPB pretty much, booked This Is Hardcore in the meantime.
The other MPB?
Yeah. So the Rob MPB played This Is Hardcore that same year. So it was like MPB in April with me, MPB with Rob in July or August, whatever it was that year.
Is that weird? I'd feel like I was in an open relationship. I wouldn't like that.
It was super weird.
Yeah.
But like the drummer was different. The rest of the musicians were the same. And then
does that still happen? Like, is there still 2 MPBs out there?
I don't know. I don't know about the other MPB.
Yeah, I wouldn't like that. I would try to put a stop to that.
Well, he tried.
Wait, who tried?
Rob did.
He tried to put a stop to your MPB?
Yeah, so like, I mean, it's not mine. And like, so we make it very clear like who's playing.
Yeah.
You know, so people don't show up thinking they're going to see him and they see me.
Yeah.
And like we did so we did a 15th anniversary of the one record I was on, and he like called the venue to complain.
Why?
Because he didn't want us using the name, which is our name to begin with.
But you came up with it.
Yeah, funny. And like he gave Rachel a hard time and stuff like that. And it was like they wanted us to call it Nothing in Vain. I'm like, I'm not doing that. It's stupid.
Yeah.
Like just put like MPB Nothing in Vain anniversry show. People were going to know it or not know it. And I was like, and it's in Brooklyn. I don't think anyone's going to show up and see me instead of him and be like, oh man. You know what I mean? And then we played one other show. Yeah, we played the Back to School Jam, and that was it. So I hadn't been for a while because, you know, all the kind of rigmarole of having to deal with that kind of bullshit, and just to make sure that, you know, people like, which version's showing up? And I'm like, that's awful. We don't want to do that.
Would you call a venue to try to get Rob not to play a show?
No. No.
I didn't think so.
Yeah, but I just so happened like the guy who booked the venue was like a friend of mine. He was like, by the way, this guy's been freaking out.
How is it with Rob? What if you saw him tomorrow? Would it be cool, or would you pretend not to know him, or would you just say hi and pretend everything's okay?
I wouldn't ignore him.
Yeah.
No, I'd probably be like, hey, bud.
That's what I try to do now. I like, even if there's beef, I used to just like make a big scene, as in like, hey, I don't like you, and here are the reasons why. And I would like actually say stuff like that. But now I do the American thing where you might not like the person, but you see them and you say hi, and that's it.
Yeah, I'm not going to have like, how's your life? Like, I'm not going into that, but
you just say hi.
Yeah. I mean, I just think it's like, dude, man, it's a fucking band. It's one show. It was at a fucking metal venue in Brooklyn. You know, I mean, like, it's not paying, you know, I didn't take like rent money from you. You know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't that big of a deal. It was fun. It was great. And we got to play, you know, but like, it wasn't that big of a deal. And it's like,
I mean, I could see him maybe being upset if it was like a Most Precious Blood show in Albany or something, but it wasn't.
no. And I think, quite honestly, I mean, if we did, like, we would make it clear who was playing. You know what I mean? And if, but to like call a venue to get a show, like, they're not allowed to use the name. I'm like, well, I don't know if anybody copyrighted it, and I don't know. It was just kind of like it added more drama to stuff that like kind of made it suck a little bit, which was not really cool. So,
and when did this happen? What year?
2016.
Oh, okay. So it was a little while ago, but so yeah. I think you said you're not sure, but will both Most Precious Bloods still play? Is there still this weird stuff going on, or do you not know?
I mean, as far as I know, I don't think some of those folks will play with him anymore.
Okay.
I don't know. I know for a fact one person wouldn't, but I don't know about the rest of them.
I see. So it's just you now and the band. How much time went by between when you left the band and then when you played a gig with them again?
Between at the end of MPB?
Yes.
3 years.
Oh, so not that long.
Oh no, yeah. So Indecision came back in 2006.
Oh.
So I was out in 2003. Went back to law school because that's what I do. I get kicked out of bands and I just go to higher education.
Yeah.
And then there was a friend of ours on Long Island that had cancer that it was called Ewing sarcoma, that like only certain treatment, like there were these non-Medicaid covered treatments that were helping him, but of course insurance is bullshit and wouldn't cover it. So all these bands got together to put together benefits for him to cover his treatment. So like Silent Majority did a bunch of shows. His brother was in this band Edna's Goldfish, this big ska band from Long Island. Bunch of bands come back together. They ask Indecision. Justin couldn't do it for whatever reason. And it always kind of like, I always felt terrible that we weren't able to do it. And I was like, I'll put all my grievances down to help this guy. So like, whatever, and then soon thereafter we got asked to play the Super Bowl, like the Black and Blue Bowl in the city. And so Rachel, Justin, and I did it. The other two dudes weren't like psyched on playing, so we did it without them. We did it with my friend Paul Klein from Suburban Scum and this dude Mike MacGyver that plays in Candiria. That was in like Marauder. And
Mike, he's the bass player of Candiria, right?
Exactly. Yeah, incredible. Like he was totally like slumming it with us. Like it's like we play riffs and he's like this like insane bass player. But
he's one of the best.
He's incredible guy too. Like a wonderful, and we've known him since we were kids, so like it worked out.
We went out to eat together. Remember? I think it was the 2016 Vadim Taver annual New York City trip.
Right, and we went to the expensive vegan place.
Yes,
that's right. Where Richie and everything. That's right.
Yeah.
Wonderful guy, incredible musician. So he filled in. Show ends up being awesome. We raised a bunch of money for this dude, and then and that was like kind of it. And then, but like we were only planning for that to be this one thing, and then it was like that was actually kind of fun. And then he passed away maybe 5 months later, and we were going to do like another kind of memorial show for him. So then our drummer, the original drummer, was like, "I'll play." We're like, "Okay." And it was out on Long Island, and it was like his parents wanted to donate all this money to like the Ronald McDonald House, because I guess when he was getting treatment, like they put up families and stuff when people were going in for treatment, like they'll put up your family like in hotels and stuff. So they wanted all the money to go to McDonald House, so we did that. And then finally the bass player was like, "Yeah, I kind of miss it. I want to do it too." And then so we did like a show in New York, probably like a year later, with the full lineup, and then it's been the same ever since.
And I'm sure there were bigger crowds because, the band goes away for a while, people grow to appreciate it, and then everybody's there, right?
Oh, for sure. Like the first show, the Black and Blue Bowl, we didn't really know what to expect, and it was like wild. And then the Long Island show, I think there was like 900 kids or something. And then the full reunion, which was at the Knitting Factory when it was still in Manhattan, and it was like Blacklisted, Kelly Time, and Indecision, and it was like 600 or 700. We knew that my friend like worked there, so like he oversold the place by an insane amount of people. And then so ever since then we kind of like play like a show or two a year. We usually try to do like a home show and an away show, and just play shows like for that make sense. Like if we could do benefits, we do that. If it's a band that we like can't believe we're getting a chance to play with, like Rorschach, we'll do that. And just kind of.
So Indecision will still play depending on the situation.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's not like it's fun. Like it's not a financial thing. It's kind of like, hey, we got this. Like we're playing in November.
Where? What's the show?
It's actually kind of funny. So it's November 26th, which is the Saturday after Thanksgiving. It's All Out War, Indecision, Warthog, and Integrity.
Wow.
But now it's Integrity's first New York show ever.
No.
Yeah.
How's that possible?
They weren't allowed to play New York
Ah.
for a very, 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 very long time.
Well, there was some incidents.
Yeah, and it was very clear that they weren't allowed to come to New York and play safely.
Has the air been cleared?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
How are you privy to what goes on? I'm very curious about that. Is there like a sit down in a room somewhere? Are decisions made? How does word get back to Integrity? I'm very curious about all of this. And if we can't reveal it, we don't want to make any enemies here, but say whatever you can.
I'm not 100% sure, but I think there's a lot of discussions and like people play like the go-betweens. They're like, hey, they said it was cool. All right, are you cool with this? Yeah, I'm so, and like kind of going back and forth and just a lot of messaging between folks.
It's a fascinating world.
It really is. It really is.
Yeah.
But like that's like an experience or like I can like bring it to the band and everyone's like, all right, I'm in.
Imagine being able to ban a band from playing New York City.
I mean, the people that were doing it, I can see it very easily.
Oh, me too. Me too.
But yeah, so it's like their first show in the city, so which is kind of cool, and it's at this place called the Warsaw. It's like
Warsaw and Greenpoint.
Yeah,
that place is sick. Have you ever been there?
Yeah, I've seen like Dinosaur Jr. there. I saw a bunch of stuff there. So Cox Bar there.
That's a great venue.
It's like a high school gym, and there's like old ladies making pierogies. It's fucking awesome.
Yeah, it's huge, and you can walk like right up front, even when it's crowded.
Yeah. I mean, I think it fits like 1,000, and like the tickets are like it's like 75% sold out already.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I think it should be fun.
I'm happy that you're still playing. I actually didn't know, because I know you have some crazy job. Like, you're like a psychiatrist, lawyer, or like, what are you doing?
I wish I was a psychiatrist. I'd be making way more money than I make now. So I am a licensed attorney.
Yeah,
but I don't really practice. And I run a nonprofit program that works with mentally ill clients coming out of jails and prisons that are like returning to the community. We're like a reentry service.
That's good. That's good. You've got a lot of accreditation, huh?
Yeah. Every time I get kicked out of a band, I go back to school.
Are you a good student? Were you like an A student growing up?
Yes, until law school.
Okay.
Law school sucked.
Law school is really hard, right?
Yeah, and I did a night program, so I worked full time and I went to law school at night.
Wow.
So so it was like, I mean, I was getting like 4 hours of sleep a night for 4 years. But I like early on, I came to the idea. I came to the realization that everyone else there didn't work.
Yeah, I mean, these things are structured so that it keeps rich people as the only ones in the running. It's like, oh, work for us for free for 4 years, and then you'll be able to get a job here or do this. And of course, rich people are going to be the only ones who are going to be able to do that unless people like you bust their ass. You got to work a job on top of going to school full time.
Right. So these folks were like, getting up at 10 o'clock, going to the gym and studying all day. I was like running a mental health program for 9 hours and then going to school. So I'm like, I didn't even stand a chance. But the majority of the folks there were like people that weren't actually working full time, which the whole program was supposed to be for people that were working during the day. So it was like a scam. So of course, it's like, you better be number one if that's all you're doing.
Now, on top of the storied history of bands and everything else you've done, you've got one of the top hardcore podcasts, Axe to Grind.
Yes.
Let's talk about this. How did you decide you wanted to start podcasting?
I did a podcast with Patrick Kinlan, one of my co-hosts from Self-Defense Family and from Drug Church. He was doing a podcast for Death Wish Inc. Called Death Talk. And he came to my office one day with his computer. It was like, we're going to, we talked about doing a podcast to get like an episode. And it ended up being like a 3-hour episode that they split into 2. And he's like, we should really do one. I go, yeah, whatever. Never think like, okay, Yeah. And he's like, no, we really should. And I'm like, okay. And he kept talking about it. And I ran into him at a show, and he was at a Code Orange show, actually, I think. And he's like, let's do this. I'm like, okay. And then we were in a group chat with with Pat, our buddy Bob, who's the other co-host, and Justin from Closed Casket Activities, and we were like talking about starting this podcast, whatever. And I was like, "Yo, Bob, do you want to be part of this?" And he was like, "All right." And it was just like, okay. And then it was like, it was called Ashley Grind in the first because it was based off like kind of off the Joe Budden podcast, where like someone would be like the cranky, I hate everything, and like we'd all kind of like someone would come in with an axe to grind. And then we'd all kind of either back them up or like argue why they're wrong, all this sort of stuff. But then like within like 2 episodes, we're like, yeah, we don't really want to do that. Like we could do a lot more good with, actually like promoting bands and shows and stuff like that. And then we're up at like, I forget, it's like 250 episodes, I think.
Yeah.
Something along those lines. And it's going way better. Like I don't think we had any idea that anyone would listen. So it's pretty crazy. It's cool. It's cool.
Yeah, because starting this podcast, I didn't imagine that this many people would be listening. So it's a nice surprise when that actually happens.
Right. So it's so hard to tell, and it's like, and then once you start seeing things, you're like, oh, okay. Like this is pretty cool. Like the charts or whatever are cool, but like, I mean, the charts is something that you can show like, hey, we're, whatever, top, whatever. Like like on the iTunes charts and stuff. I don't know if they're worth the paper they're printed on, but they look cool.
Yeah, sometimes I get emails from companies and they're like, you're the number whatever podcast in America, or you're the number 3 podcast in this country. And I don't know if any of it's true, but I believe that it is because it makes me feel good.
Right. It makes, it makes all the hard work, seem like it's worth it.
How many hosts do you have on your podcast?
There's 3 of us.
Is it really hard to manage that? Because when I had my co-host Tommy here, it was so hard just to manage my schedule and his. How do you do it with 3 people?
It's pretty tough. We were sort of like just kind of doing it as we could, but then we were like, all right, we're going to settle on this day. Patrick's a touring musician, so it makes it a little bit more difficult. But yeah, usually it's like, well, like, all right, every Tuesday we're going to record, or every whatever. But Pat always likes to throw wrenches into things. He moved to Australia. So now we have to either record very early in the morning or very late at night on the weekends. And we come out every Tuesday morning at 6 a.m. So there's no messing around.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever missed a week. So it's kind of like, it's difficult, but we make sure it happens, like whatever needs to happen happens.
Yeah. That's the key to success of this thing, I think, is consistency, because you see so many people start a podcast and it lasts for like 4 episodes and then they're done.
Yeah. I mean, cause it is an undertaking. Like, I think people I don't know if people realize how much of a pain in the neck it is, or it can be. Like you have to really dedicate yourself to it, and like either, record bunches at once. So you have some stuff ready to go, or which is what we usually try to do. Like there's been times like Patrick was going on like a 6-week tour or something, and like we literally like holed up in a hotel in like Jersey somewhere and recorded for like 3 days straight. And we recorded like 16 episodes or something.
Wow.
It was brutal. It was so brutal. I was like hallucinating by the end of it. But we recorded like, I forget how many hours, like 20 something hours of content over a weekend.
After one conversation, I have to go lay down and just recoup. How could you do it for 16 hours? I would be hallucinating.
It was brutal. I don't know how we did it. We just had, like we had like a bunch of different kind of topics laid out, things that were evergreen, as they call them, whatever. And it was crazy. Yeah, it was. So I mean, it's like we'll do whatever we have to do to make sure that Tuesday morning, there's something, popping up on everyone's podcasting stuff, podcasting apps or whatever.
Yes.
I mean, quite honestly, and I'm sure you deal with the same thing too. Like if you're supposed to be up at 6 and it's like 7:15 and there's nothing there, you'll get the DMs.
You know what? That hasn't happened to me, but I've never been late.
That's impressive. Sometimes like we like Patrick puts it up through some other program that doesn't always work or whatever else. Like sometimes it'll just not go through. Yeah. But like literally I'll wake up like to go to work in the morning and like people will be like, so what's up? No episode this week. And I'm like, oh shit. And then I'll have to like find Pat and make sure that, because when he's living in the States, he's not a early morning person. So
yeah, I'm a super control freak. That's why I'm literally watching the seconds count down from 8:59 to 9 a.m. to like hit post to let everyone know the episode is up. And then I build in buffer time so that it uploads like before it's posted,
Oh yeah. I mean, like he does, I think he does like some kind of like, it's like planned in advance.
Yeah.
But like, it could, like 4 days in advance. So he doesn't pay any mind to it. And then it's like when it doesn't get posted, he doesn't even realize it's not up.
It's a very stressful. Yeah, there's a lot of work that goes into this. I think people think it's easy. You just get together with some friends and talk into a device and throw it up on the internet, but you can do that, but nobody's going to listen to it.
Right. And I think, it's fun, but it's definitely work.
Big time work.
And I think, it's as long as you have a good concept or good concepts and just ideas, like you just got to stick to it. And there's going to be times that you have no interest in talking for an hour and a half about whatever, but you have to.
And your podcast is cool because it's you guys, it's the three of you. You can have conversations about whatever you're having, and you don't really need other people. You have guests sometimes, but it's like this self-contained thing, which I think is great.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what we try to go for, just because it's like, there are, especially with three people already, but I think there are other programs that do it, other podcasts that do it so well. That's like already, like it's already there. Like they don't need us to fucking add to it. But I think we always kind of like look to be doing, like, people have been like, it's like sports radio for hardcore. And I'm like, that's exactly what it is.
That's exactly my thought on it too. And that's why I like it.
It's fun. It's like, because there'll be times like people would be like, dude, I'm yelling at my car, like in my car, because you guys can't think of what the second Civ record's called or whatever, you know what I mean? Or we'll get emails and be like, what about that? You mentioned this, but you forgot to say that blah, blah, blah. Like, it's, and we have great rapport. Like, we get, great emails and great DMs and stuff. So it's like, it's not like us just like chat. Like, it might just be the three of us, but we have like a ton of kind of interaction with the folks that listen and stuff like that. And sometimes they give us ideas for shows. Sometimes they'll be like, you totally forgot blah, blah. I'm like, holy cow, how did we forget? It's been awesome. I've met a ton of people that listen over the, in different places, and people that like Bob had somebody recognize his voice. Like, that's happened to me too, which is funny.
Oh, that must be a trip.
It's funny because it's like, oh, you wouldn't know me from a fucking hole in the wall by my face, but like, you're like, are you the guy from Matt? I'm like, holy shit. Yeah, I guess if you listen to us 2 hours a week, I guess you get used to my dumb voice. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You have over 600 reviews on Apple Podcasts. Do you have to beat the audience into submission to submit those reviews, or do they just do it?
We've never asked.
Wow.
Maybe in the very beginning. Yeah, I just, what? Because my whole thing is like, well, I mean, I don't know. We're not very professional. So it's like, people like my buddy Emilio, he does like a bunch of like hip hop and like wrestling like podcasts, like well-known ones. Like he does one with what's her name? Renee Paquette, which like she used to be in WWE. Like he's like, dude, you gotta give your socials at the end of every episode. You gotta give the email. You gotta do, and like we forget to do it every single time. And like there'll be times that we haven't done it in so long. We're like, is it at Axe to Grind podcast or Axe to Grind cast? And we're like, well, one of them is because we didn't have enough. There weren't enough characters, but one of them says like we have no idea what we're doing. But like, so we've never been like, please go to Apple and review us, because like we usually end very abruptly because someone has to like go to work, someone's got to use the bathroom, whose partner's yelling to get off the phone. Like it's sort of like we don't have like a smooth ending a lot of the times. So we have 600. I guess that's pretty good.
That's great.
Is it? Yeah, I don't like to ask for any, because if someone gives us like a bad review, then I'm going to be like, I'm going to find out who you are.
Yeah. Listen, if don't give Tom a bad review. You don't want to get on his bad side. Trust me. He knows Fury of 5.
I mean, I was like 20 something years ago, but I might be able to still call him,
I've been really pressuring my audience to try to get me over 100, and I'm getting close. But listen, I don't want to waste time talking about that. I want to talk about you while I've got you here. What do you think about other podcasts? Do you like them? Do you hate them? Do you listen to them?
I love other podcasts. I listen to podcasts almost, if not more, than I listen to music.
No,
I think they've been great. I mean, I think we're living proof that it's like it's easy enough to do and do okay.
Yeah.
That like but I still hear podcasts and I'm like, someone has to know how to use like a recording device, because like you obviously, it's like everything's crystal clear. Like you can hear if I like moved my seat for a second. There's other ones that it sounds like everyone's calling in from a rotary phone from 1982.
It's wild.
And it's like, I can only do so much of those.
Yeah, it's wild how much low quality stuff there is out there. You can just get a $150 Blue Yeti mic and sound as good as this show. It's not hard.
Right. And that's my only thing. It's like people that like sort of half-ass stuff like that. But otherwise, like, I think it's cool. I think there's room for, I think like there's a ton of hardcore podcasts, and I think that's cool. There's room for everybody.
There is room for everybody. And I like other podcasters. I haven't talked to a ton of them, but I've checked out some of the bigger ones. I like them. I like to have podcasters on my show, either as guests or guest co-host. Either one. I want to get along with everybody and have like a community thing going. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's great. It's fun, and I mean, the quality job that you have. I mean, the recordings you do are great, and you have like art for like for social media. Like you do like a legit podcast.
Yes.
Like we never ours is like, hey, it's up there. 6 a.m. It looks the same. It's the clip art that we found, and I think it's still the clip art. We had a friend of ours, John Contino, do like this like logo, but I don't know if that's up on. I think that you can only get that on. Maybe it's only on Spotify. I forget what it is because we don't really have much clue of what we're doing.
I wandered into this thing pretty haphazardly, and I'm glad because I may have gotten discouraged if I saw everything that was out there and how many other people were doing good interview shows.
Yeah, and I think you do a great job, and like the you bring on people that you either know well, or I mean you do like any kind of research that's involved. Like there's nothing worse than you're like people that go in, you're like, oh, you don't really totally know this person.
No, if you're having them on, you have to know them.
Right. And then it's kind of like, our whole thing is even when we do have guests, like we try to have guests that are familiar with the show at least.
Yeah.
So like we've had like Pat Flynn on from like Half Heart and stuff because it's like he listens every week.
Oh, that's awesome.
So he's like a guy, he's just a fourth person.
Yeah, it's like Howard Stern does that. Like they'll, when Jackie quit the show, they wanted to get a new person in there, and they would have people who like understood the flow of the show and could just plug in. It sounds like that's what you're doing too.
That's what we like to do. Yeah, I mean, like we had like Emma on from like Dying Wish. Like she listens, so she knew. Like we don't want it to be like. So then you put out the 7-inch in 1998. And then, like that's tough, and like it's because there's other people that do that. Like I feel like Damien turned out a punk. Like you can like listen to that dude's podcast, your podcast, and like get a full overview of this person, and that's perfect. I just don't know if we like, I don't know if like Pat could keep his mouth shut long enough for someone to answer and like get a real, you know what I mean? Like I think for a one-on-one, it's perfect.
Yeah.
For 3 people and having a fourth person, like, being the focus of all the questions, I think it would be almost too difficult for us to pull off, and that's why like the one-on-ones work so much better.
Yeah, it would be. I wouldn't want to have 2. I used to have 2 people on for my interviews. I wouldn't want to do that again.
It's too much. I mean, we're lucky that we like have gotten to know each other well enough that we don't really talk. I mean, we still talk over each other.
Yeah.
But it's, for the most part, we know like who, like when to shut up and let the other person chat and all that sort of stuff. But it's definitely difficult. And adding a fourth person who doesn't know the flow of the show, it's like, good luck. Pre-COVID, we did them all in person, which, made it a little easier. But then like ever since then, like people don't realize that, like people are like shocked that I'm like, no, we've done these over Zencastr or Zoom for the last like 2.5 years.
Yeah.
They're like, really? And like, it sounds like you're in the same room. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's the hope.
Yeah, that's what you want. That's what you want.
But yeah, we still definitely talk over each other and stuff, but it's like a normal conversation. I think it's sort of, it's not stilted enough that it's like you talk, then I talk. Like this is just sort of like, if we're arguing about something or if Pat Pat talks about how he hates the Cro-Mags and I have to step in, I'm going to step in. I'm not going to let him finish talking. You know what I mean?
So Most Precious Blood was on Trustkill back in the day.
Correct.
I read that Most Precious Blood is working with Bullet Tooth now. Is that correct?
That's a tough question. I guess. Yeah. So we were looking to, before the Trustkill stuff was going. So whatever the story was, Trustkill lost the records and all sort of stuff, and some major conglomeration owned all the records but did nothing with them because, of course, like why does Sony or whoever the fuck gives a shit about a Most Precious Blood? You know what I mean? A record that's going to sell 1,000 copies, whatever.
Yeah.
So we had been in conversations, a friend of mine label that we worked with in the past to reissue, with the idea of having it out by Furnace Fest, to reissue Nothing in Vain.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of like, yeah, let me get you that information. Let me get you that information. And then it never came through. And then all of a sudden I saw that all the MPB records were on streaming. And I was like, oh, okay. So I was going to have it reissued by another label, and then I got frozen out until it came out on Bullet Tooth.
So it wasn't your decision.
Correct.
Your thoughts?
I think it's kind of lame. You know,
Because I was surprised when I read that. Number one, because we all know the Trustkill story. But then I was reading online, I saw Most Precious Blood is now on Bullet Tooth. And I'm like, wait, did they decide to sign with Bullet Tooth?
I mean, I think the last MPB record was on Bullet Tooth, but then I think he was slowly but surely getting some of his back catalog back. But I mean, already, like most of those bands left, like Poison the Well were gone, you know, like, and on, you know, a ton of the bigger bands had already kind of reissued their records with other places. We were looking to do the same, and we kind of got blown off until it was too late. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, okay.
So now you're stuck.
I guess. Yeah.
I would have had serious reservations in working with a new label because of some things that happened with the old label, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the label that we were going to work with is pretty like big in the hardcore metal. Like, and we had Indecision had done a reissue with the label.
Yeah,
Doing fun, and it was just kind of like he was working on it, and kept getting the runaround. And then all of a sudden, it was like all the records are up on Spotify. We're like, oh, okay,
all right.
that's good to us. Yeah, I mean, we just kind of it was Closed Casket. If I will be Closed Casket Activities is going to reissue it, and like,
Yeah.
I love the work that Justin does on the records and like the stuff he does with the layouts and all that sort of stuff. So we were like stoked, and
It's a great
you know,
label.
yeah, and he puts out a ton of stuff, but he also has these like passion projects like that, or the Indecision record, or like, you know, like Another Victim and stuff that it's like, you know, he could put out a Vane record and sell, you know, 1 million copies, but he also does these things of records that he grew up loving and all that sort of stuff. So like, I was super stoked to do it, and then it was kind of like months upon months of being like, yeah. Well, let me get you that number over at such and such, and then it never happened.
Is there a plan now? Do you want to get the records reissued somewhere else, or is it just it is what it is right now?
Well, I mean, I think the ownership is back to Trustkill / or New Trustkill, whatever the fuck it's called.
Yeah, Bullet Tooth.
Is it still Bullet Tooth? He's keeping Bullet Tooth, which is a terrible fucking name for a label. God damn it.
Last I saw, Josh was running a label called Bullet Tooth. I don't know if that's changed at all.
Yeah, that's like when he had to like hand over a Trustkill.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Trustkill got absorbed by Sony, but then I think he walked away from that entire thing, and now he's just doing Bullet Tooth.
Right, but I think he was trying to get some of the Trustkill catalog because it was just sitting somewhere.
Yeah.
So I think he was trying to get some of them back. You know, but it's like so many of them had already been, like Poison the Well had reissued like Tear from the Red and
yeah,
you know, Opposite of December and stuff. So it's like I think he's trying to restart Trustkill, like, and sign new bands, but like if you don't have any of the cachet of your old label,
yeah,
it's kind of tough.
That seems like it might not be the best idea.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's like if you want a newer band, say like I'm trying to think like Foreign Hands. Have you heard that band, Foreign Hands?
Yeah, I love that band.
Great band. They have a This Day Forward ripoff shirt, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
But I think if they were looking for a label, if Trustkill was still around, like that's like right in their fucking wheelhouse.
Yeah.
But if you could be like, hey, you know, we're reissuing Opposite December and fucking every 18 Visions record or whatever, people of that age group would be stoked to be part of that label.
Yeah.
So I think that's like his big selling point, is just sort of like, you could be label mates with Poison the Well.
Well, I mean, hopefully they've sorted out whatever else was going on before.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was typical like record company bullshit.
Yeah.
That it was just like, I can't believe all this money. And then it's like, then all of a sudden, like the torrent stopped immediately.
Yeah.
And then it was like, oh, I've been living, you know, way above my means, not realizing it.
Yeah. My personal theory, this is just my personal theory. It just seems like a cash flow problem. Like a bunch of money came in, got mismanaged, and then it was like a rob Peter to pay Paul thing. Like, okay, we only have X amount of dollars. 3 bands are going on tour. Okay, let's give it to this band. These 2 bands are getting fucked. And it was just playing this game until it all collapsed.
Yeah, and I think sooner or later, like, Sony became like a creditor and was like, we're just going to take this. Like, they take your car.
Yeah.
They repo your car. They repoed his label.
Yeah.
That's my understanding. I never got involved because it was like one of those things. Like, I didn't expect anything from putting out records anyway. I just wanted, you know, I didn't expect to make money from it.
Yeah. You didn't have any problems during that whole thing, did you?
During the Trustkill days?
During the Trustkill heyday, trouble days?
No, you know, it was funny. I was talking about this with Justin. It was one of those things that we'd be like, you know what? We sell a decent amount of records. Like, shouldn't we be getting? And then we'd be like we'd go back and be like, hey, you know, we sold X, you know, we never got like any kind of invoices or anything, but it would always be like, oh, but remember you took like 200 shirts for tour?
Yeah.
And then it would be like, I guess that's right. But it's not right. That's not, the math did not work out, but no one ever thought, like, we were like dumb punk rock kids that were like, that sounds right. I mean, we took 200 shirts, but those shirts, 200 shirts cost $800 or whatever. You know what I mean? Like we were sort of, you took a box of CDs on that tour. Oh, all right.
Yeah, you don't know what's going on. Like I might at that age I might think to ask one question like, "Hey, why is this happening?" But then when they snap back with, "Oh, you took the shirts," I'd be like, "Okay."
Yeah, we're like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, and we did sell those, so I guess that's that's how we got paid or whatever. But
it's not like you're going to ask one question and they're like, "All right, here's your money."
Yeah, like you got me. Yeah, it's not.
That's not the way it happens.
No.
Well, Tom, let's recap. Now, Most Precious Blood will not be playing Furnace Fest.
Sadly not.
But we hope to have you on next year's Furnace Fest. Yes?
Yes. Already spoke to Ryan. He's going to reach out at the end of this year and we're going to figure something out.
Perfect. What other gigs are coming up? Can we see you before then?
November 26th in Brooklyn with Integrity and Warthog and All Out War.
Yes. So we have to go to that. To our listeners, we want to attend that show. And of course, we can hear you every week on the Axe to Grind podcast. If anyone listening has not heard the show, Tom's description that he said he's heard of sports radio, but in the world of hardcore is accurate. That's what I like about it because it reminds me of, I would be in the car with my dad and he would listen to these AM talk radio sports shows. And I love the format, even though I don't care about sports. I just like the conversation and I like the topics you guys cover. I like the conversation. I like everything you're doing. It's great.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I think it's like other people, like I've had people like, yeah, I listen to it. Like my partner's in the car has no idea, but like they think it's funny. It's like, it's just three idiots talking about stuff. It's not always hardcore. Sometimes it's about movies or current events and me and Pat yelling at each other about that sort of stuff. It's, it's a little bit of everything.
Well, Tom, I appreciate you. I appreciate you coming on the show and, I look forward to seeing you again. So thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Keith. I'll talk to you soon and I'll see you next time Vadim Taver, the tour comes through.
That's right. We got to get it done.
That's it. Thank you so much.
And there you have it. Tom Sheehan. Wow. Excellent conversation. Honestly, as I was editing that episode and listening back to it, I realized that I couldn't even comprehend the fact that there were two Most Precious Bloods at first. Like it took a minute for that to sink in. And I had so many questions. Like the two Most Precious Bloods share members. I think Tom said there was a different drummer, but how do we have a conversation? How do we decide which singer we're going to get? How do we decide which band we're booking? Like, it was so confusing. And I was like, oh my God, I could have done 30 minutes just on that. So it seems like just the Tom Most Precious Blood is a band now. So that takes care of that right there. And look, that was a really entertaining conversation. Tom does not hold back the things he had to say. And he was very upfront about, his experiences with his bands and leaving and coming back and just his label experiences, everything very forthcoming, awesome conversation. And I know Tom through my friend Vadim, who has been on the show a number of times. He's just a really nice person. So thank you so much, Tom, for coming on the show. That was great. So let's check in. Me and you, how are we doing? How are we doing? This week has been okay. I went to Syntheside again Wednesday night at St. Vitus. That's a Wednesday night thing they do. I don't know if it's every week or once a month. I'm not sure, but they have post-punk bands play, and I've gone a couple times. I went again this week and saw Aberdeen Sky. They were good. Catherine Moan, she was great. She's like a pop artist. It's just her up on the stage with the backing tracks, but she really sells it and is confident and is awesome. She stole the show as far as I'm concerned. Awesome. And French Police headlined. They're a new post-punk band. Really dug them as well. They looked good. They sounded good. Overall, it was really nice. And I like that synthesized thing. I don't listen to a ton of that music, the newer post-punk stuff, but I've gone a couple times and I dig it. Last time I went was when I saw it was Catherine Moan opening, and I missed her at that gig. So I'm glad I caught her this week because she was fantastic. House of Harm, play direct support, and I've seen them twice now. They are a really awesome new band, and I'm actually going to end the show with a clip of one of their songs today. So if you're listening to this anywhere except YouTube, you'll hear that. They're really good, and Soft Kill headlined. That was a fantastic show. So if you're in Brooklyn and you dig post-punk music, go to Syntheside. You'll like it. And otherwise, everything is good. I have felt extra anxious lately, and I have felt extra lethargic lately. The only thing I can chalk it up to is the change in season. Fall is my favorite season. October in New York City is my favorite time and place of the year, but I feel how I feel. I don't know what the deal is, but I'm pushing myself to get re-energized. There's a lot going on with the podcast. We're on a push with some new things, and I feel rejuvenated. I'm going to be kicking into high gear again. There's going to be a lot of awesome guests. There's going to be a lot of awesome things coming up. We sold out of large shirts. The Life is Music is Life long sleeve. We sold out of the large size. That made me feel really good. People are buying it. It's awesome. Oh, so make sure you get a long sleeve while you can. There's limited amounts in each size. You want that shirt, especially now that it's getting cold. So yeah, podcast is going great. Life is going great. I haven't been streaming because I got into this mindset where I felt like anytime I had to play a video game, I had to be streaming because it's like, produce, market everything. Everything has to be something. So I found myself not playing video games anymore because I want to play a game, but if I play a game, I have to stream, but I don't want to stream. So I would just do nothing. So I'm just dropping streaming for right now. I'm only going to do it when I feel like it. And I'm just going to play games on my own time because that's how I unwind. And I don't want to turn it into this stressful thing, which I'm doing. I mean, that's about it. It's just another week here in my life, but everything is great. More exciting stuff coming up with the podcast. More top tier guests. I'm excited. And I am happy that you are here with me. So that's it for this episode. We are out of time, but I'm back next week with a new episode and a new guest. So I'll see you then. Thanks everybody for listening. And until next time.